Hi guys, today we have with us a very special guest, someone who has been a high achiever throughout his life. He got into IIT Delhi, Carnegie Mellon, and now he is the Dean of Stony Brook University. So sir, it's an honor to have you. I really appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure being here, Raghav. Nice to meet you.
Same here. So sir, tell us one thing, right? That IIT Delhi, the number one institute in India, Carnegie Mellon, one of the top deep science institutes in the world, and now finally becoming the dean. Were you a high achiever throughout your life?
I wouldn't necessarily put it that way. Certainly, I think growing up in India, being surrounded by good friends and the family atmosphere, obviously, that plays a big role. Before going to IIT Delhi, actually, I was at DPS RK Puram, which,
Wow.
as you would know, is also one of the good schools in New Delhi. So pretty much, I think growing up, the culture that we had was education is a way for us to move forward. And obviously, as you kindly pointed out, my journey through both IIT New Delhi as well as through Carnegie Mellon kind of built the foundation for me in both engineering as well as analytical thinking.
So my question to you is that you have seen the way sciences, engineering, analytics evolves. And at your time in IIT Delhi versus right now at Stony Brook, what are some similarities you see in the way teaching is done, and what are some differences that you see?
So eh, obviously, I moved out from India in 1987. So that's a long time back, and things obviously have changed a lot. I do remember in the mid 1980s, the first PC coming into IIT at that time. And
Rajiv
obviously,
Gandhi's time. Mr. Sam Pitroda and Rajiv Gandhi were the.
it must have coincided with that as well.
Yes, right.
We were using IBM mainframes at that time, and pretty much there was a single mainframe computer, very powerful, but all the students were using. So you had to actually make reservations to get a time slot to be able to get things done. In some sense, I think it's a continuation of tradition in India where we have always tried to do uh, as much as we can, if not more, given the resources that we have in front of us. There's a term I'm sure the audience would be familiar with, jugaad, right? Which is you kind of make the best with the resources that you have in place. Clearly, things have changed in India. I think India is a fascinating place. I visit there as often as I can, and I'm really marveling at the transformation that's taken place there, both in terms of academia as well as private industry growth there. Obviously, we've been hearing about the software industry having really transformed the visibility of India in a global sense. And now we are looking at AI as the next frontier. I think India still has a little bit of catching up to do on the AI front, but clearly where software played a big role in automation and efficiency, AI is going to take it to the next level where we are going to be obviously looking at unstructured data rather than just structured data only. The way I look at my journey, the interdisciplinary approach at Carnegie Mellon, which had the theoretical rigor that you need to build your foundation, at the same time, the emphasis on real world application. I think that combination is what we are trying to do here at Stony Brook as well.
Perfect. No, sir, I think AI will be a segment that I will get into because that's a whole segment on its own. But just to talk a bit more about your personal experiences, a lot of people that are coming from the Futurens US pathway to the US, they have this question for you that you lived in India, you studied in India, you would have seen people build a career in India. What do you see or what do you believe are the core differences in the education as well as the career aspects between India and the US?
Absolutely. I think one of the, I guess I would classify my response in two broad categories. Um, the US style education tends to be application focused. What that means is while you are still going to be building the theoretical foundations, The emphasis is going to be more on case studies, project-based learning, and industry engagement. So that's has been one difference between what I have seen happen in the past in India and the US. A second thing is the emphasis again on bringing in some flexibility in the programs, whereby there are instances where students obviously get to uh, set their own majors, and even within the major, you may have a certain set of required subjects that you have to go through. But after that, there is great deal of flexibility that you can explore that. The research opportunities, obviously, in the US, the industry collaborations, there is already a tradition, a strong tradition at many of the leading universities, such as Stony Brook. So what it does, I believe, is it provides for a hands-on experience for our students. Um, the other aspect I would say, which is relatively not as common, and it's something I have seen the value of personally, and we've incorporated that into our curriculum here at Stony Brook, is the use of communication and storytelling capability. Whether you're an engineer or you're a business student, uh, we would not be compromising on the rigor of the program. We would have the same type, the theoretical foundation that we would build. But at the same time, how do you translate your insights, the analysis that you have developed using the methodology that you've learned into actionable insights? That's where you require communication and storytelling capability. I'll give you a simple example. Most of the managers, the senior managers that you would come across in organizations, whether it's in India or even here in the US, uh, they pretty much have received their degrees 15, 20 years back at the senior level. So while they have heard about great advances in technology, it's not that they are necessarily adapt themselves at that. So the role that our students would play is make a compelling case and argument that the analysis that our students have done is actually going to be meaningful and useful to the organizations. And that requires a transformation of the analysis into insights where communication plays a huge role.
Perfect. No, sir, I think I second your thought. I like to believe that pre 2023, it was all about knowing the right answers. Post 2023, after the advent of Chat GPT and generative AI, it's all about asking the right question because
Correct.
all the answers are out there. So I completely second your thought on articulation and how critical that is. And so that is one area that a lot of our students, they are a bit scared about because for them it will be a new campus, a new life. They might not be able to understand how diversity works. So can you talk at a Stony Brook level that how is diversity fostered on campus? How is campus life? And anything you want to talk about the culture and the overall environment on campus?
Absolutely. So let's start with our location. We are on Long Island, which is right next to the leading metropolis in the US, New York City. Specifically at Stony Brook, we have a very diverse student body representing over 100 countries. I think what it does is obviously it offers an opportunity for students to mix with each other. There is both professional and personal development that takes place when you're meeting with students of different cultures, as well as networking opportunities as well. Um, in terms of specifically in the Indian context, it would be um, very, it would be a common sight to be able to see a bunch of Indian students walking on campus and overhearing some of the conversations in different Indian languages as well as you kind of walk by them. So I think the students obviously have that opportunity here at Stony Brook. Our location, I think, affords that. The There's a very strong Indian community here on Long Island. Number of Indian restaurants, number of Indian grocery stores. So pretty much, I think access to what used to be a challenging aspect of international student life. In the 80s, when I came to the US, there would be typically, at best, one store or one restaurant in the city that you were in. Here you have dozens and dozens of different opportunities with cuisine all across from all parts of India as well. So that's one. The other thing is having a strong international student presence already at Stony Brook. What it means, importantly, is that even the university administration is aware of some of the requirements, the unique requirements that international students would have. So it's not that they have to go through the learning curve as well. We have systems in place. The university supports that. We have strong interdisciplinary culture. We have opportunities for collaboration, certainly within the business school across engineering, healthcare, and business analytics. So it's a great experience for students who want to be in an environment where they will feel comfortable. They will have access to resources that they are familiar with in terms of I'm talking about resources on the non-professional side, on a personal level.
Perfect. So for me, I started in the US for 4 years. And for me, one of the biggest reasons of coming to the US was the focus on research. And as we were talking about AI, one area which I believe India needs to work on is the research. Because if you look at private companies in the US, they are spending anywhere between 4 to 7% of their overall revenue on research, versus in India, it is only 0.5%. Now, the US universities, particularly, are known to talk about research funding, industry collaboration, technological advancements. And the US federal agencies are also set to invest about $60 billion annually in research and collaboration. Can you talk specifically about your university? How do you guys focus on research and collaboration?
So let me share a few examples. I'm going to start, let's say, there are two examples let me mention here, and there are actually a lot many more than just the two I would talk about. So let's start with the analytics program. Uh, Again, if you go back to 5-10 years, as recent as 5-10 years, the availability of data used to be a lot more challenging at that time. Now you have possibly more data than you could use. Now, obviously, with the AI models coming in, the need for additional data becomes even more critical. Now, where do we get those data from? Where do we get the context behind that data? It's not just the data. Data is pervasive everywhere. It's the context which is important. And what we are trying to do here is build in practicum requirement as part of the curriculum. A practicum would require students to get data from different companies and work on projects that are specific to that company. Uh, this is just one example at the analytics level. Uh, in, let's say, in a different program like accounting, we have advisory boards, and advisory board members are constantly providing for networking opportunities for the students as well. They are actually on campus a
Right.
lot of time in order to provide for that. So I think the same would apply in the finance area as well. So if you're doing analytics, let's say, and you're looking for a career in the finance industry, obviously we would provide for opportunity for students to get a well-rounded education where they're taking courses in the areas that are of interest to them, and at the same time having exposure to industry professionals. We have something called as immersion weekends,
Mhm.
where we invite industry experts 4 times during each semester to come to campus and offer perspectives in their particular industry. It gives an opportunity for students to even network with them and kind of build some personal relationships with them. So there is a it's a it's something where leading business schools such as Stony Brook, we would be emphasizing both on the academic knowledge generation as well, but at the same time, the application behind that thought leadership is something that's important. The last thing I would mention here is having centers and institutes on campus. Those also provide for opportunities where the centers are constantly networking with different industries and getting consulting opportunities through those industries, particular firms as well.
I see that you have mentioned AI multiple times, and that is obviously the mood of the world right now. Everyone is talking about it. Now, when I talk about big data, basically AI is all about big data, is all about data pipelines, structuring the unstructured data, and then finally adding insights on it. Now, how have your particular programs evolved after we have seen AI going mainstream in the core analytics programs? Where do we see AI's direct use case?
So there are uh, obviously, I think like any other um, development that you see that the industry is looking for from a business school's perspective, what would be of interest for us is twofold. One is providing the training to students that would make them marketable in terms of what the industry is looking for. At the same time, given the dynamic changes in the landscape, especially in the business area, we are also, in some sense, taking a step forward that we want to be proactive and anticipate what businesses are going to be needing as opposed to reacting. Because anytime you're reacting, making changes in the curriculum takes a certain amount of time. And what we are trying to make sure is whether we have boot camps for our students, whether talking about AI, um, eh, the a crucial differentiation between a data analytics program versus a business analytics program is that in a business analytics program, the emphasis would be fourfold. The emphasis would be on the methodology, which is the foundational skills. The emphasis would be on the business context, whether it's marketing, whether it's operations, whether it's finance. The emphasis would be on communication skills. And lastly, the emphasis would be on experiential learning. So the combination of four aspects is how I envision a business analytics program with AI would be a suitable way for students to get into the next phase of running businesses, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in retail, whether it's in finance. The need for data-driven decision making is has never been as strong as it is currently. So we cannot afford to not have our students be trained in that particular area.
And sir, right now, when we talk to students, some of them are extremely fearful of AI taking over jobs. Now, my belief at my top level thought is that as human beings get more sophisticated tools to solve problems, they start solving more complicated problems. And that is what I believe we will see in the job market. But would love to get your perspective on the overall impact on the labor market, broad level, and where do you see analytics professionals fitting into this?
So the one thing I would say here, Raghav, is that change is a constant. Things will always be changing. So you cannot be doing what you were doing 2 years back. I certainly wouldn't have been able to get my research publications if I was trying to do exactly what I was doing in the past. Now, uh, that's one aspect. So we have to have that intrinsic motivation that we will be upskilling ourselves. As part of that upskilling, I think it requires getting away from that fear of that what's that next thing that I need to get more comfortable with. In many ways, while I understand the hesitation and possibly the fear with AI, actually AI is going to be a level set. It's going to be settling some of the differences, the divide between technology and business. You would no longer need to know complex programming languages in order to run certain applications because AI is going to be providing you with the codes. So, what we have already started to see is that pure computer science is actually having more challenges. And the reason
Very
they're
true.
having more challenges is because AI is going to be affecting a lot many of the things that previously human beings were in charge of. The business context where AI, I think, is going to play a role is like we talk about Chat GPT and generative AI and all the latest developments coming in play. I think what AI does is it gives us the opportunity to have a more nuanced way of decision making. And I'll explain what I mean by a nuanced way of decision making. In the past, we would make decisions based on the assumptions that we felt were the correct assumptions. Now, anytime you're building a model and coming up with solutions, the validity of those assumptions would come into question. Were these the right assumptions or not? With AI and the transformation, the efficiency through technology and the computing power, what you could do now is change assumptions and very rapidly come up with different kinds of solutions. So you are able to even question your own assumptions that you are making. What it means, why is this nuanced, is you're able to look at things from different perspectives rather than your own perspective only, which is the natural thing that would come to us. And that's where I believe AI is going to be an enabler, where we are going to be equipping students who do not necessarily have a computer science background, but give them a much more user-friendly interface for them to use advanced technologies to make data-driven decisions.
So, sir, I was recently watching a podcast of Jeff Bezos, and he said that AI is like a horizontal layer. It is like electricity, where it will impact anything and everything. Do you also second that opinion?
Well, at present, clearly, I think what AI has done is it's been transformative. As I mentioned, the difference between the evolution from the advances in the software industry, and India clearly was a pioneer in that advancement, is that in terms of software, we were looking at optimization and efficiency, but it was almost exclusively using structured data. But we know that most of the data now is not structured, whether it's images, whether it's voice. Many times the data itself is corrupted. It's incomplete. So the ability for AI, the textual analysis, as an example, the previous software paradigm was not able to handle the unstructuredness in the environment. AI has fulfilled or is aiming to fulfill that next gap in human decision making. If we were to take a step back, why is there so much emphasis on AI that we hear about every day in the news? Um, it's about efficiency for sure. It's about speed, and it's about making better decisions. So it's a combination of the depth of the technology, the computing skills, the accuracy of the decision. So think about in the healthcare context, a radiologist who's looking at a MRI output and trying to conclude whether the person has a serious ailment or not. Obviously, the use of AI would help what we call as reduce both type 1 and type 2 errors, right? You don't want a false positive, you don't want a false negative. So that's where I think AI enabled decision making is the way to go. We hear about AI displacing jobs, uh, and that that will happen as well. But at the same time, um, it's more likely to affect people who are not going to embrace AI. So embracing AI in some form as part of your skill set, I think, is going to help individuals actually be more effective in decision making. And it's the transformation from, this is going back to a previous parable where you had calculators come in, and you talked about how decision making changed with calculators, and computers, personal computers came in, how it changed decision making. This is yet another one. It may be a quantum leap, not to confuse it with quantum computing, but it's certainly a major advancement in the technological frontier. And our ability as a institute of higher learning to equip our students to be comfortable using those new technologies in a business context is what would drive the success of our programs.
So, I personally believe that business context is the theme that is going on right now, has been going on for some time. But our belief is that long term, context needs to be coupled with ethics. So how do you look at the usage of ethics in analytics and AI?
It, it's a it's a prime area. So as you would have possibly seen as well, um, there are different ways in which AI can be um, the use of AI can be detrimental to decision making. So think about uh, fake videos, fake audios, and fake news headlines. It can cause a lot of damage. Ethics is a, I think it's a key requirement for business leaders specifically. Now, the way I look at ethics as part of business education, we can provide for a framework for what's the need for ethical decision making. At the same time, accompanying that, I think you also require uh, two other dimensions to it. One is on having a legal framework where there is a strong deterrence towards anyone violating the norms in society is made responsible for that violation. At the same time, I think there is a general cultural aspect where um, you kind of have to rely on individuals, you have to rely on families, you have to rely on students before they come into higher ed. This could be part of their high schooling and even elementary middle schooling, where there has to be the emphasis on doing the right thing. And that's where while ethics is something which we do cover, it's a major part of our business curriculum as well across all our programs. Uh, Clearly, it's something that requires a team effort, both at individual and family level, at the legal level, and at the corporate level.
Very, very beautifully explained. And I personally believe right now it is tough to quantify ethics, but we are slowly and slowly going towards that paradigm where long term we can quantify ethics. I think that is going to be the best case scenario. So, sir, last two segments of our conversation. This segment is more about a bit fun. It will be more about your couple of fun things that people would love to understand. So the first question I have is that what is that one Indian dish you like to eat in the US?
Um, hmm. There's definitely more than one. So you're giving me a very hard question, Raghav, there. Um, so I'm originally from Mumbai, or it used to be Bombay when I was there. So having grown up in a metropolitan city, you kind of get exposed to all kinds of cuisine. So and having lived in New Delhi for a long duration as well, so obviously I have strong affinity towards North Indian food as well as to South Indian food. Um, so pretty much, I think what the delicacies in North India. I've recently looked at the top 10 uh, uh, chana bhatura places in New Delhi,
Oh,
and I'm trying to have a benchmark on how many of those I have already ticked off. So I still have long ways to go there. And South Indian food obviously is always a favorite. I think it's something where being a vegetarian myself, I certainly look forward to having that.
yeah. Have you been to Patel Plaza? Patel Brothers?
So there are Patel brothers pretty much across the US. So several times, yes.
Several times. Perfect, perfect. So my next question for you is that what are some fun things to do in Long Island?
The Long Island has lots of parks. Obviously, we have lots of beaches as well. I think the winters are not as severe as if you move further up the northeast. It gets a little bit cold, depends on where you're from. If you're from North India, I think it's a little bit easier. Um, the summertime, I would say March through October, November, which is certainly beyond the summer, it's already fall by then. I think it's beautiful here in Long Island, and having access to New York City, it's a it's a train ride away. There's a train station right on campus at Stony Brook,
Oh,
and
really?
that train drops you straight into Grand Central or Penn
Wow.
Station in New York as well. So that connection is there, and because of a very strong Indian community here on Long Island, you're also we are fortunate to get lots of Indian artists visit here, whether they are movie stars or singers or
Wow.
so. There are plenty of concerts that are held on Long Island itself. Last year, I attended actually three of them myself.
Which ones are anyone in particular?
So there was Sonu
Arijit
Nigam.
Singh?
Sonu Nigam was here
Oh,
last year. Then we had Rahat Fateh Ali, who used to be in Indian movies.
Rahat Fateh Ali Khan.
Rahat Fateh Ali Khan and Udit Narayan was here as well last year, and and there are several others. It's kind of uh, the opportunities are there. You need to be able to find the time to be able to go for them. Yeah.
Perfect. There's a one last question in this segment. You can avoid not answering it. A lot of people, when we were telling them that we're talking to you, they were like that, ask him that the Long Island iced tea, is it from Long Island or is it from somewhere else?
I wish I had an accurate answer to that. Uh, Hold on, let me put it on Chat GPT and give you the answer for that too.
Wait,
So I think
perfect.
I would recommend them to find that out. So there are certainly, I think, um, there's a very strong Italian American community here. So there's all kinds of Italian cuisine you would get. Obviously, there are a lot of bubble teas and iced teas and pretty much a global uh, cuisine experience possibility here on Long Island. So it entirely depends on what your preferences are and what suits your budget, because things obviously can be expensive. It's like any other place you go in India as well. There's a wide spectrum of different restaurants that provide for lots of delightful cuisine, I would say.
Perfect, perfect. So this was supremely helpful. So we'll go to the last segment, which is more philosophical, where I'll ask you for a couple of advices that our listeners would love to understand. The first advice is that to a professional, any professional who is thinking of building a career in the post AI world, if you had to give one generic piece of advice, what would that be?
The post AI world. So obviously, we don't know when that world would actually come into being, but um, I would say with confidence, the ability to embrace change. If we have gone beyond the post AI world as you described it, what happens is that transformation to adapt to new technology and help us make better decisions. The thinking, the embrace of change, uh, hopefully is ingrained within us. We are not going to be complacent and not learning, not aiming to learn as things are changing around us. So that's one I would say. The second thing, which I believe is going to be even more magnified, is, and let's kind of put this in a context. If we are going to be relying rather on equipment and machinery to help us make decisions, the the output of that, how would we translate that into action? How would we convince others that these are the right decisions to make? Communication skills, the need for communication skills are going to be even more amplified, in my opinion. So it's a combination, I think, of having the desire to embrace change, which is not always easy, and also the ability to have effective communication. These two things, I would imagine, would help us in any environment in the post AI world.
Wow, amazing, sir. I think this was a great, great way to end the conversation. One last question. For our students who are coming through the Futurens US pathway to Stony Brook University, uh, what would you tell them before they apply? And what would you tell them once they land in the US?
I think the first thing I would mention about Stony Brook is, um, and there's a lot of this information already there in the literature. Um, the advantage I think we have, and I've mentioned about our proximity to New York, which obviously has so many different industries and firms out there. But we are a public university, which means our tuition is 50% lower than private, if not more. Even in comparison with other public universities, our tuition and fees are 15% lower than other public universities. Stony Brook has been ranked in the top 100. We are ranked number 58 in the country, and it's on a steady upclimb. If you have followed the news recently, this was within the last 1 week. There was an announcement of a new president joining Stony Brook. She's currently the Dean of Engineering at Princeton University.
Wow.
Her PhD is from from UC Berkeley, and she used to be a faculty member at Stanford.
Wow.
Also, let me put this in context. The previous president of Stony Brook is now the president at Yale University. Now, getting a new president from Princeton and the previous president going to Yale, clearly there are magical things happening at Stony Brook. The university has been on a upswing. We are constantly trying to do even better for our students, even better in terms of the thought leadership, the reputation that we can build for the institute. I've been here at Stony Brook for roughly 2 years now, and as we are transforming our curriculum, making it more analytical, making it more STEM focused, at the same time emphasizing the communication aspect of not just learning the methodology, but also communicating it to other people. I think Stony Brook is what we used to say a hidden gem. Hopefully, it's no longer a hidden gem.
No, sir, I think you have made me so excited. I want to join it now.
Wonderful. Look forward to it, Raghav. If you're interested, let's talk.
Perfect, perfect. I think a brilliant way to end this conversation, sir. I think you have been very candid. We know you are a very busy person. It's morning for you. You're taking our time out. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.